What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, the best place for ambitious millennial professionals to learn more about career clarity and gain soft skills to find that dream career. Now, in this video, I'm going to talk about something that just recently happened in Ontario, and it's basically Doug Ford going on to the news and saying that the second wave has officially happened, right? It's begun. And so there are a lot of tensions going on in the society right now in terms of people going to school, kids going back to school, and then the administrators having to, do administrative stuff, and the administrative assistants having to really take the brunt of the case. So there are a lot of parent groups that we're part of, my family's part of, and one of them is, the parents of York regions, right? Moms of York regions to be specific. I live in the York region in Ontario, and one of the things that came up is that there was an administrative assistant in that group that shared her experience on how she's been taking a lot of heat because there have been cases where recently there's a fourth grade teacher that was found to have COVID, and then everyone in that class had to basically be sent home to be checked, and then also go to the hospital. The whole family has to go to the hospital to get checked for COVID, and pretty much it's a big disruption to a lot of people's lives, and a lot of schools, it's breaking out. It's essentially the second wave, right? So a lot of parents are now having to, some runny nose, and then the parents have to come in and pick up the kid and take him to the hospital to be checked and everything. And then there's also cases where it's like, not even a runny nose, like 2 coughs, and then the parents have to go pick them up. And so it's a tough time for everybody. And one of the things I want to talk about is, so that administrative assistant posted in the Moms of York Regions group and was basically sharing her experience and how she's been taking a lot of heat for it, and how and I'll read it off right here. You can see my settings a little different from usual right now because this is very much impromptu. And she was basically sharing how she was, crying. She cried at work yesterday. She cried 3 different times last night after going home from work. She's an office administrator at elementary school, and she's crying because the work and expectations that have been placed upon them have been ridiculous, and the time frames are overwhelming. She's crying because she had to answer the phone and hear the concerns and frustrations of parents who are upset at the policies put in place to protect their children. She's crying because she had to call home for a child who is sick and risks getting yelled at because she has now inconvenienced a parent who has to get a COVID test for their child. She's crying because she was told to get her shit together because, and I'm reading off her thing, her post, because a policy has changed and someone doesn't agree, and she didn't change the policy, she's just following policy. She's crying because she has 400 children and 50 staff to try to keep healthy and illness-free during a pandemic, yet parents continue to send their children to school sick. Regardless if it's a cold or not COVID, you shouldn't send them anyways, right? She said that in brackets. And so the next time you answer the phone, it is one of the school office staff calling, please remember that he or she probably has been yelled at, spoken down to, and it just outright disrespected, and is already nervous about calling home again. For a student, we know it can be an inconvenience. We know that you may have to cancel plans. We know that you may have to need a few last-minute phone calls to get grandpa or grandma or neighbor to pick them up. We're all human. And a simple thank you for calling would suffice, and a smile at the door when you pick up your baby. And then she added, remember, I am the one who also comforts a child when they fall and needs ice, and tell them a funny story to turn their day around with a Band-Aid and a hug to get rid of the tears because they scraped their knee. She's the one who reassures your child when they're crying because they forgot their lunch and life's now over. She's the person that makes sure your child gets their medication and checks the blood sugar. She's also the one that your child, at the end of the day, when they miss the bus or someone hasn't come to pick them up yet, and now they think they have to sleep at school, and she's the one to comfort them. And she has to wear many hats in the office, and many times she has to work in the shadows and go unnoticed, and be kind and be thankful that there is someone looking out for your child when you can't be there with them. And that's basically the message. Now, looking at this message, I know this is a tough time for everybody, and so much empathy and compassion goes to all the frontline people, whether you're medical or you're in education or whatnot. There is a huge appreciation. At least I have a huge appreciation for them and the risk that they're taking and the sacrifice that they're making to make this work. now that we've officially been announced that this is the second wave, I want to talk about the administrative assistant in terms of, what is the personality for that, and also discuss, why we need so many different types of personalities in society. And so looking at that message, I feel there's a lot of things that can be said about an administrative assistant. Number one, and if you're new to my channel, I talk a lot about personality in terms of personality fit in the workplace and what people do and what makes people satisfied at work. And one of the things about personality is that for administrative assistants, there's several personality traits, and the big 5 personality traits. Let's just break it down quickly. We follow the OCEAN acronym. Openness. Trait openness is openness to experience. That's basically whether you prefer new experiences or you prefer the tried and true. And administrative assistants generally are in the middle, right? They're quite flexible, but they also love to have a system. C is trait conscientiousness. And trait conscientiousness is whether one prefers to stay focused on one task or one prefers to multitask. And in this case, administrative assistants all often prefer to multitask because they have to juggle so many roles and wear so many hats. And that's basically what this lady was sharing about. Like, she has to do a lot of things in the office, have to wear different hats and handle different identities, whether it's dealing with people who the actual administrators, the teachers, or the kids, right? There's a lot of things that they have to handle, and on top of that, and of course the parents as well. Extroversion, they have to be extroverts, and the reason for that is because if they aren't extroverts, it's very hard to deal with so much stimuli, especially at a school place environment, because obviously there's kids coming in and out, and there's a lot of noise around the office. And one of the things that people get confused about extroversion is extroverts they have a higher resistance to stimuli, right? They can handle more stimuli, while an introvert, if you put them in a basketball stadium and to watch a basketball game for a long time, they'll probably get drained out in no time. But an extrovert, they can probably hold off until the fourth quarter or whatnot, right before they start getting tired. And extreme extroverts are able to even party afterwards. But an office administrator would typically be someone who is extroverted and love to deal with multiple people and be very social at the same time. For A is agreeableness, and trait agreeableness is basically people who are office administrative assistants. They tend to be higher in trait agreeableness because they like to work with people. They love the group harmony, and they love just being able to be console people, like helping out the kid, consoling people, consoling the child, or being helpful to the administrator, the principal, or the VP, or whatnot, or just being able to help other people. And one of the things that they particularly struggle with is getting yelled at. Actually, I mean, a lot of people struggle with getting yelled at. That's not rocket science, but I think people who are agreeable in particular struggle with that because they don't like confrontation. Confrontation makes some people uneasy, right? If you're high in disagreeableness, if you're disagreeable, some people love confrontations. They love that conflict, and they'll rush the first time. First minute there's something that breaks out, they're like, okay, I'm at him, right? And different personalities prefer different things. People who are administrative assistants, they tend to be lower. They tend to be conflict adverse, and they love to be helpful. And so but you obviously see that in that story, in the case that I just presented to you. The last personality trait I would say is trait neuroticism, right? And that wraps up the OCEAN acronym. And trait neuroticism is basically the amount of stress that you can handle. And if you are higher in trait neuroticism, then stress will throw you off. Now, a lot of people, and a common misconception about neuroticism is that a lot of people think if you're neurotic, that's bad. Well, neuroticism is also for people who have are very perceptive to other people's feelings. And so someone like an administrator, if they're more sensitive and neurotic, and they're able to read between the lines in terms of whether a parent comes in and they've had a bad day, and they're able to empathize, especially if they're agreeable, they're able to empathize very well. And at the same time, if they look at a child and they walk in and they're pouting, or they just read between the lines, something's off about the kid today, they're able to sense it and really reach out to them and really help them out of that situation. And when I read that case that I presented to you earlier, about that office administrative assistant, helping out the kids, helping out everybody, and just trying to take care of everything, juggling many hats. What really pops out is the trait conscientiousness, being a multitasker. Trait extroversion is, they have to be extroverted and handle many things at the same time. Extroverts also tend to be positive, optimists. And trait agreeableness, being high in agreeableness in terms of taking care of everybody and also the team. And also being higher in trait neuroticism because you're sensitive to other people's needs. But at the same time, this type of personality is also very vulnerable to attacks, right? If they're agreeable and they want to, do things and be helpful, if you attack them, it's going to be very tough on them. Also, if they're sensitive, right, they're neurotic, so they're higher in trait neuroticism, and they're able to read between the lines and feel the room. And if you attack them, it's going to be tough on them. And being lower in trait conscientiousness also means you're juggling a lot of things at the same time. And at times that means that there are, and I love this analogy, that sometimes there are glass balls and sometimes there are plastic balls. When you're juggling many balls at the same time, you're gonna drop some balls. And one of the things that people who are lower in conscientiousness is they're juggling a lot of things at the same time. And as long as they don't drop the glass balls, everything's okay. And so they're trying really hard to balance everything out, but it's just not easy because, especially in times where there's protocol is shifting, policy is shifting, at a drop of a hat, the whole thing could change. And it's actually a really volatile time, but you really need people who are lower in conscientiousness, people who are more neurotic, and people who are more agreeable to make things work. And I just want to say, I guess, the point is, we got to appreciate these people who are helping out and making things work. And I understand there's the inconvenience of, having to pick up your kid and also, making all these adjustments because, someone in the classroom, some other parent in the classroom brought their kid to school and that kid had sniffles, and then now the whole class is has to get checked or something. And there's a lot of inconvenience in that, but I think in these times there's something to be said about compassion and empathy and not lashing out at people who are just trying to make things work. And I also want to say, I just really want to appreciate the office secretaries, the people who make things work at the workplace, because I was a teacher before, and one of the things that I learned out of the door, right out the gates of being a teacher, is those administrative assistants make things happen. And so I think we need to appreciate them. These are rough times for everybody. Let's have more compassion, let's have more empathy, and just help each other ride this out. And that's all I wanted to share today. I guess the personality breakdown for the administrative assistants, and also how we need so many different personalities to make things work in society. And yeah, that's it. All right, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a subscribe, give it a like, blah blah blah, and I'll see you in the next video.